at this point. We were going to get up to 8 inches, but it is the 45-mile-an-hour winds and the wind chills, and potentially they're using the word life-threatening, wind chills that we're going to be seeing. So it's a tough decision. And
so what's closed and when?
As far as schools, virtually all.
You name it.
Yeah.
Today?
Yes. I mean, all the. I've got an updated story.
It doesn't happen till way later.
Both radio station websites have a closings and cancellations list linked to the top of the page.
That's right.
So KWOS.com, 939theeagle.com. If you're curious to see some of those school and community closings.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I have a separate story on this as well about the school districts, but Columbia Public Schools would be the biggest one. Ashland closed as well, Stephanie, and in smaller districts as well. Boonville R1, Heritage Academy
California.
as well.
Are you disputing my AccuWeather forecast that says by 3 p.m., 19 degrees? That's not life-threatening. It's cold.
The wind chill is what they're talking about. The wind chill is what they're talking about.
Oh, okay, 27 to 46 miles an hour.
I see 45 to 50 is what they're warning them. And then they're using the word life-threatening.
Yeah, well, no, it does. If you're caught out, I get that. Yeah.
I have a question, too. What about the Chiefs game? Because it's supposed to be miserable.
Yeah.
Has a football game ever been called off?
No, this could be the coldest one in history of the NFL.
And there actually was and I understand what you're saying. It's a tough thing on the schools, but if they do go over the 6, it's a tough issue. If they do go over the 6, the state always waives it at the end of the year. But no,
good. That's good for education.
Well, they do. I mean, this has happened before. But the question about the Chiefs game is a good one. And a fan actually went viral, tweeted it, a Miami Dolphins fan tweeted it, Mayor Lucas, and basically was arguing this point that it is life-threatening for the players and the fans. And Mayor Lucas's response was kind of, I thought, a little condescending. He said, "We'll be ready." I'm not sure who "we" is, but he said, "We'll be ready," because they're going to have to. They're going to have heaters and stuff like that. But no, the bottom line, the game is not going to be moved. But I understand what the fan was saying, but that is going to be very tough for those fans to be.
Remember the game back in the
cold.
Brian? Remember the game back in the '80s when it was, I think, Chiefs Broncos, and it was like what? 1 degree or something like that.
That I remember, and I remember the football Cardinals playing a playoff game in Minnesota in '74, and that was the
'60s when the Packers and the Cowboys played, and it was like negative 10, 15 degrees. Remember that one?
Well,
yes, I do. Absolutely.
And I learned some things on this Kelsey podcast. The two brothers were talking about it being so cold, and they were like, we don't like sitting on that warm bench because it makes us hot. And they said what you don't understand is not only is the bench heated, which I recently got a car with heated seats, and it is for the first time in my life ever. Absolutely life-changing, and a heated steering wheel. And I don't know that I could ever, I've never had one, but it's amazing. But they said we don't sit on the bench. It makes us too hot. Because they said people don't realize that actually the carpeting, like the flooring, is also shooting up heat from below. And they said it's super hot. They said the one thing they like to do, though, is I think Jason Kelsey said he doesn't like the heated floor because it softens the cleats. And I didn't think about that. But he said the thing they do like to do is put their helmet on the floor because they said with that type of temperature, the helmets, they said, turned into basically rocks, which when you're talking about safety, I didn't really put two and two together there.
And that's why if you notice the hot benches, they've also got towers on them that are helmet heaters. You take your helmet off, sit on the bench.
Will we be seeing anyone injecting the ball with air?
Well,
remember when Brady pulled that?
The referees pay close attention to those.
Inflate gate.
I do, and the players, and I do think about the. To Stephanie's point, I think about the officials. I mean, that's going to be very rough, but the fans as well. It is going to be very tough. But I think that's something we're looking at. But the Columbia Public Schools did meet 3 times yesterday, and part of it was the timing, even though the timing changed. So it is a very difficult situation for them. A lot of it, the MLK Day of Service tomorrow, that is a big deal in Columbia. I mean, people come from all over. That is canceled, and Columbia Parks and Recreation is closed all of their park restrooms until further notice because they're worried about the plumbing. So the plumbing and the valves, I'm being told, could burst and freeze. So those are closed.
I know the husband and I, even just in our house, of course, it's an older house and it's not super well insulated. We've already talked about how we're going to keep our lower cabinets open.
Good idea.
this weekend, even though we're going to be home just in case, because it is going to be that cold. I think the low for tomorrow night, according to the National Weather Service, was -7.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be pretty chilly.
With a wind chill of about -18, we are looking potentially at KWS.com, 939theeagle.com. You can look right at the front page. I forecast through the Weather Service. They talk about record lows, forecast lows, and we're looking potentially Sedalia, Columbia, Kirksville could be looking at, and Kansas City too for this Chiefs game, record cold this weekend. So it is just this is this is potentially unprecedented. Something we've seen.
We're going to see frostbite.
Days.
We're going to see a lot of injuries, extremity injuries from people getting caught out in the cold, thinking they can do things more than they can, thinking that it's just a little cool weather. It's going to be bad. But while it's cold here,
it's a feel-good Friday
in
Randy.
the States, it's very warm over in the Mideast, and Yemen was attacked.
Wow.
The Houthis in Yemen were attacked on their mainland in over a dozen spots. Submarine attack, missiles fired from the Eisenhower, I think, group is over there, carrier group. And so we'll keep an eye on that. All the while, Secretary Austin, he launched that from he had his little bed table, apparently, in the hospital and launched that attack from, and ordered that. Meanwhile, the economy still remains a little hot. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Aaron Hedlund will join us at 7:10 to talk about that. If you're going to be holed up with the kids and around the fire and huddling and cuddling and playing Yahtzee and all the games you play, not Yahtzee, what do you play anymore? What do you play? Scrabble? What are you playing?
We do not play Scrabble.
You don't play games? No?
No. We play all. I have games out. I mean, all of them.
Well, you
want
to do
card
some
games.
At 8:10, Holly Swenson, who is a mom of 4, an RN, and an author, is going to join us for mindful parenting and prepping them for entrepreneurship and managing finances and stuff. So it's going to be fun to talk with her. And in a little while, Hannah found this interesting story at 6:35. We're going to talk about the unhappiest states for employees, places you don't want to move if you're looking for a job.
And I do not know the answer. I don't know this guest's list of the best and worst states. So
This will
hopefully,
be interesting.
Hopefully we don't land in the bottom.
The chief joy officer. All right.
That was his
Chief Loka Pandya. Loka Pandya. We hope that this is a legitimate guest. This isn't a Babylon Bee guest.
No, it was booked through Fox News Radio.
Oh, well, then it has to be good if it's Fox, right? All right. And
hopefully.
And your thoughts about a Feel Good Friday, how you're going to stay warm, some of your trepidations, always welcome at 573-874-9390, or, of course, on the text line.
And you can also text us your winners and losers of the week. We're going to be doing those at 8:35.
You betcha. Okay, so lots on tap on Wake Up Mid-Missouri as we wrap up a tepid week, but it's going to turn ugly here this evening and this afternoon. Stay with us. More coming up.
Ironically, I think that makes me the perfect person to speak about this because fentanyl transcends partisanship and ideology, gentlemen and women. This is a totally different problem.
Time for the Daily DC Rundown, and that was some celebrity testimony yesterday, huh?
Yeah, it was. So it was Jelly Roll, and they actually announced him Mr. Jason DeFord, which I didn't know.
Did anyone know his name?
I didn't know.
I didn't know his last name, but I listened to his wife's podcast, and she calls him Jason, and it's odd.
It's strange, but he was the perfect person to make that speech. If you haven't, it's only about 5 minutes. If you haven't seen the full audio, you really need to go back and look at it. And he said, look, I've had kind of, a different past than most. And because of my past, I'm actually not allowed to vote. So I don't follow politics. I don't care. Not that I don't care, but I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat because I can't vote anyway. Yeah. But I am really passionate about this issue. And one thing he brought up was he came stacked with a bunch of facts and personal experiences. And one of the facts he brought up was, hey, and I think it was perfectly positioned because we've had so much news media about this airplane blowout and Alaska Airlines. And he said, if 190 people a day die of fentanyl, and that would be a 737. So imagine the media outrage if a plane went down every single day. I mean,
when you think of it in those terms, yeah, we've been talking about the MAX with a door blown out,
and no one even died.
Yeah,
no one even died. And he said, "This is what we're dealing with. So we have to, take this issue seriously." And I think he's right. And I think his testimony yesterday was super powerful.
There was a really compelling documentary, a story that they did on the CBS Sunday Morning, news magazine. And it was fascinating. I mean, they went to the jail cell where he spent apparently a lot of time.
Yeah, he was a former drug dealer.
Oh, man.
And, he takes accountability for his past, which is cool to see. And it's really cool to see him seeing success now, despite everything he's overcame and all the platforms he's now supporting. It's really cool.
It's a story of redemption and grace and mercy and everything else, and accountability, too. Pretty good story, John. I mean, I think that's... whatever his story is, I wish he would bring that to the prison population, and he does. Mm-hmm. He does speak to youth.
He seems very genuine once you get past the kind of counterculture appearance he has going on, but he seems genuine.
And humble brag, I did see him in concert at a festival 2 or 3 years ago now, before he really blew up. But the energy, I was like, who is Jelly Roll? And he was way up on the card. He wasn't the main performer, and the fervor of his fans. I mean, and so he has a large platform, and I think can really make a difference. And it's nice to see him using that to try to do that.
And especially in a time when we're hearing and seeing more about young men, wayward young men in their 20s that, they're jobless, they're in their parents' basement playing video games and stuff. Guys like Jelly Roll can be an inspiration, not only for all of us, but of course for those young men as well.
Yeah, it was nice to see. But speaking of this aircraft issue and Alaska Airlines, I guess a Seattle company has now sued Boeing, saying, these passengers have been traumatized by the. Well, of course they have been. And I think what were they offered by Alaska? $1,500 for their. They said, hey, here's $1,500. Sorry about that.
That's barely a plane ticket.
Oh, right. And so I think a lot of those passengers are thinking, I need probably a little bit more compensation.
So was this?
I heard they tried to upgrade them to window seats.
Oh, man.
Is this a personal injury thing?
I'm not sure.
Would there be a case?
It would be.
How do you prove damages?
I don't do personal injury, but I think I think we're going to see some more litigation over that. But I mean, would you get back on a plane after that? I don't know.
I don't know. I struggle with the plane anyway. I'm doing a lot of praying as it's going down the runway, even though it's the safest way to travel.
It really
Rationally, it is. You're just not in control. That's all.
Yeah, it can be.
Reminds me when I was a kid, my career Air Force officer pilot father would never, ever let us take our seatbelts off when we were flying. Commercial, private, whatever. Yeah. Never.
Certainly. And they said that one guy, he was the closest. His shirt got sucked off. And he had his seatbelt on, and so he was saved. So that's good. Well, now going to Congress, the shutdown is looming. There is no good deal. Apparently, the Freedom Caucus held some stuff up that was unrelated yesterday in a protest over Johnson agreeing with Democrats on this top-line spending number. But that we're facing a pretty significant deadline, and it doesn't look like there's any consensus still today.
We're seeing in D.C. what we see in Jefferson City. I mean, John, it sounds exactly like a carbon copy on a
They call
bigger
them
scale.
both the Freedom Caucus.
Yeah, yeah.
And we are also seeing another deadline coming up with the Iowa caucuses. Now, we've been talking this morning about how cold it's going to be, and Iowans keep saying, oh, don't worry, we're going to all show up. But certainly, that has to play a factor, Randy, I think.
Could you see some of Christie's votes going to Haley? They're not going to go to DeSantis, I don't think. And Trump people being so confident in the polls that they just don't show up. I mean, it could get interesting.
I think
that day, we need to talk to Loka Pandya, the Chief Joy Officer, lokapandya.com. I see, Loka, welcome to the program.
Good, joyful morning. How are y'all doing?
Doing good. Well, you have a joyful demeanor, I can see, and as I get on your website, I see you, the feature there is you with a bubble machine. You're described as a serial entrepreneur and an angel investor, and we want to talk about what makes employees happy and where the unhappiest employees so people don't move there. Tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so there's a bunch of recent studies have been out there, and what they've actually looked at is they looked at annual wages, they looked at quit rates, injuries, commute times, paid time off, and working hours. And what they have found that the happiest employees typically will live in happier states. But the biggest thing is how much time they're actually getting away from work. Like PTO, commute times, weekly working hours. Because I think things have really switched after 2020 to where people are really honoring their work-life balance, because not so much about what they're doing at work, it's what they're being able to do out of work. At the same time, people finding purpose in work while they're at work.
Okay, so now this is from an older dude here who says that I get fulfillment out of work. When I work longer and I make a difference for my patients, I feel good. I like to work. They have to pull me away from work. John Marsh, you're probably the same way, right? No?
You betcha.
Yeah. But yet we have young ladies here at Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and one of whom, I don't know your work-life balance, Stephanie. What's yours, Hannah? Let's talk about that.
That's actually pretty important to me.
Okay.
No, I work all the time.
Yeah, okay. So is this did they stratify these results by generations, or is this just sort of an amalgam of the workforce?
Right. It's overall just the amalgam of the workforce. But absolutely, you're right. There's two sides of it, just like you've hit. One is the time off, because that's where things are shifting. The newer generations are wanting that time off. They're to take time to themselves, be in their joy. But at the same time, you're exactly right. Purpose is very, very big. There was even a study where they studied 2 janitor groups at hospitals, and they asked about how their work was. One actually didn't like the work as much. They had a lower score, but the other one actually had a much higher score. When they actually asked them, what was it about it? They said that when we go to work, we're feeling like we're healing the patients, keeping it clean around them, talking to them, making them feel better. So they felt true purpose in their work.
Okay, so that gets to something. I can't help myself but get political, Loka, so I'm sorry.
Yes.
But I can tell you, I've been in healthcare field for over 30 years. And I can tell you that people in the healthcare field, and as I talk to people in almost all industries, the influx of the regulatory state, the compliance, the metrics, the measure, if we don't measure it, we can't change it, quality science, all that. I understand there's some contributions there. But I find that those distractions, the noise at work, and this is not generationally dependent, but it seems to take away from that purpose, from like, what are you about? Why? I'm about treating patients. Stephanie's about being a lawyer. John wants to be a reporter. Hannah wants to do production and radio. But there's logs for the FCC. You got to do this, you got to do that. What do you say about what the government and its influence through too many regulations does to our basically wanting to just punch the clock and go home?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I understand what the government's trying to do. They're trying to create a certain structure, but you have to realize that when it comes to joy, right, joy at work, we're creative beings. We're people that are meant out there to find solutions. We're meant out there to look outside the box, to do whatever it takes to get that job done. You actually see it in a lot of teachers. Teachers out there, they come in bright-eyed. They want to change these kids' lives, but then they're restricted by all the different rules and regulations out there. So I absolutely believe that there has to be a balance on how much actual regulation is in there and how much freedom you give them. It's kind of give them guidance and keep them within particular boundaries, but let people do their jobs so they can feel fulfilled and make the changes that they can and foster that creativity and solutions that we're meant to have as human beings.
Well, and I think this is so important, especially for our small business owners with the labor market the way it is. You know, I'm constantly looking at ways I can compete with other folks, and sometimes maybe I can't compete on price. So you're saying there are some other factors. And I think one you mentioned is just, offering people more PTO. In small business settings, though, that's not always an option. So what are other things that employers can do to try to be an attractive place for folks to work?
Oh, I love that question. So the whole thing is looking at your workplace and saying, is it a joyful workplace? Is it a joyous workplace? Because the thing is, when actually you look at a lot of these stats, the highest paying states out there aren't the ones that are the happiest. And so when you look at it, it's like, all right, are you putting little, what I would call joy breaks, or are you spending some time even at work coming back and not talking about work, playing a game, spending time getting to know each other? Company culture is huge. And this day and age, because of the work-life balance and all about the focus on mentality and on our mental health, especially the new generation, even the older generation, if you create a place, even at work, where they can kind of have a mini vacation for 10 or 15 minutes and kind of escape from actually what's happening at work and take that joy break, people will absolutely want to come more because they love the culture the most that's at work, and they enjoy being at work because of that culture.
Talking with Loka Pandya, the Chief Joy Officer, as he's referred to, here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on a Feel Good Friday.
Loka, to follow on with Stephanie's question about small business types and all that, I think their big challenge of obviously, one, finding the workforce who will stick around, but it's all about productivity, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what you'll find is many of these companies that have that culture and have that joy have the productivity, because once again, as human beings, we're not meant to sit there and work for 8 hours each day and just focus on work. There's a level of cortisol that goes out. There's stress. There's anxiety. There's fear, trying to get things done. But if you foster someone's creativity, or think of us as children. When we're children going through playing, we had all this different creativity. And there's a few private schools that I know out there that they really push that creativity stuff at the very beginning of the school day, and they start learning things a lot quicker, and they're a lot more productive in getting their things done. We take that same concept and saying, okay, we know that a workday may have stress, may have some anxiety, but let's take some breaks to bring that down, because it'll automatically clear someone's head where they're not thinking of something else. They're not trying to get dopamine hits from social media. They're actually sitting and being able to focus on work because they're feeling good. When someone's feeling good, their productivity is good.
Loka, you referenced a study about the unhappiest states for employees and the happiest. Where does Missouri rank?
Missouri falls at 27.
Okay.
So they're kind of right in the middle. I live in Texas. We happen to be second to last.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Now, you sound like just a naturally happy person, and joy is about happiness and pleasure. Is it important in the HR department and in the departmental manager's mind to hire some people that just naturally have a effervescent personality? And, you can test for that, but you can usually sort that out in interviews. Must be important, no?
Yeah, absolutely. It's contagious, right? It's absolutely contagious. I used to have a hotel company where I used to run it. When we had a stressful day, I'd come in, things would just shift. I've seen it in different organizations. Having all kinds of different personalities is great, but having someone come in that can just uplift, it's almost like having a motivational energy, right? You don't need a speaker, motivational energy when someone comes in. I absolutely think it's important to have that good energy person, because even that person's energy may come down a little bit, and somebody else may be able to bring it back up.
Now, you mentioned Texas is near the bottom, but who's doing really well? Who's at the top? Give us the top three.
The top three is actually Alaska, Rhode Island, and North Dakota.
So weather doesn't play a factor then.
Yeah, when I was looking down at it and I was thinking about it, I was kind of surprised because a lot of the southern states are either middle or at the bottom, but it goes really back to focusing on those things I talked about. It's more about what people are able to do with their time off, because some of these states, they have higher pay, but some of them don't even have as high, because the highest paid state is at number 11. And so it definitely seems like the cooler temperatures are the people that have the happiest.
Well, okay, so I guess you would advise against my favorite thing to do in my time off. That's get work done that I didn't get it done at the office. Probably not a good idea,
That's not time off.
I'm kidding you. I enjoy working and whatever gives you joy. Hey, Loka Pandya, thanks for being with us. You can learn more about Loka at lokapandya.com. Thanks. Have a fabulous weekend, brother.
Thanks so much. Have a joyful weekend. Take
All
care.
right. You can tell he smiles when he's talking, and on his website there's a picture of him speaking, and he's sort of dancing across the stage.
Yeah, he's got some sweet dance moves.
Yeah, you like those, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. You'll have to see those sometime. We have enough room here in the studio. You feeling dancey today?
No, thank you.
Oh, not you. Okay.
Have a dance off.
There's a really great video of Stephanie dancing on Zimmer Communications socials, actually.
Come on.
Inside Columbia Magazine.
Now, we're going to ask the audience to weigh in on whether or not Stephanie's energy light, she has an energy light on this morning, whether you've noticed anything about that.
It's right next to her patchouli.
When we come back on a Feel Good Friday on Wake Up in Missouri, 573-874-9390. Is the energy light doing its thing? bubble machine can make you as happy as Stephanie Bell's Energy Light. Tell us about the Energy Light, the inspiration for it, and we'll see if we can get some feedback from the audience if they noticed. My wife had texted me, not knowing we were doing that, and said, lots of energy this morning. So there you go. Maybe, I don't know.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I got it for Christmas, and I go to work typically when it's dark outside, and I'm typically done with my work day and it's dark outside. And I think I heard about it first. Well, I've had one before years ago, but I think Dr. Huberman, he's kind of been an internet sensation lately. I saw it on his Twitter or something, and he was like, you need to get like daylight early in the morning. And
so you were influenced into it.
Yes. And you can, and if you have, if you get to do fun things like we do here in the studio early in the morning, but perhaps maybe you're not, out soaking up the sun, or you live in Missouri and there's no sun, even when you do wake up, that you can kind of fake it. So anyway, we're going to give it a try.
Yeah. We had Josh from engineering come in yesterday because I was curious. The studio lights tend to be...
Let's be honest, Randy. You're not just curious. You're skeptical.
No. Yes, curious and skeptical. So, but just to the naked eye, it appears to me as though the wavelength, the temperature, the color perception of the studio lights, not far off from. It's a whiter light than say your soft white bulb that you have in your lamps at home or something. And it looks sort of daylightish to me, and that's good for you because we know that if you have seasonal affective disorder, affects about 1 in 5 people, but I mean seriously, where they need treatment, probably 9 or 10% of the population. Just exposing the retina at about 20, 25 inches for 10, 15 minutes in the morning to daylight length light will make a difference.
Yeah, and we had a co-worker who had a light box that he used on a regular basis here in the building.
Did you notice a difference, John? In the coworkers, how he felt?
He was always grouchy.
Didn't matter, huh? So I don't know. How long have you been using this?
I think I'm on day 2.
Oh, okay. So you're experimenting with it here. We're doing a real life experiment.
Yes.
Can you show it to the cameras stuff?
Oh, sure. It's kind of bright. It's little.
I just thought it was her new makeup mirror.
Oh yeah, it does work really nicely as a makeup light.
It is pretty bright.
Oh, John, that's what you and I need is to get one for our makeup lights.
There we go. When the camera's on you.
There you go. And as long as we're on sort of feel-good topics and maybe you want to remain feeling good, maybe you want to remain living, if you're one of the millions of Americans who would like to reduce your risk of dementia and in a new study reduce your risk of early mortality by 25%.
25%?
Yes.
Don't tell me to drink more water.
Go on to if you think you have hearing loss, if you find yourself going, what? Huh? If you're finding yourself at a gathering, maybe nodding when you're just trying to go along to get along, or get along to go along, you may have a hearing problem. You can get online now and you can do testing. And I knew I had a hearing problem from my days in the band. I was a brass player and in a rock band. No, I was a top 40 band forever. And I lost a lot of high-end hearing. I saw my dad sort of begun disconnect and desocialize. We've seen our parents do that. We've seen coworkers do it.
Well, and I think it can be really isolating because first you have to kind of admit like, hey, I'm not hearing things really greatly. But yeah, among coworkers, we've heard, it's not that every day I have hearing loss, but maybe when I get in a crowded room and there's a lot of background noise, and it can be so isolating because then if you can't hear what people are saying, then you can't engage in the conversation, or you stop going to those events because you feel isolated and you feel like you can't participate. And so I think hearing's really important.
So there was a 24% lower risk of mortality for people who used hearing aids, according to Southern Cal's Keck School of Medicine ear, nose, and throat doctor Janet Choi. That's a big deal.
Well, and here in the last couple of months, haven't they started to push those out over the counter?
Well, as long as we're talking about it, I had hearing aids a long time ago when I was in St. Louis 25 years ago. And life got in the way. They started failing. But they were the kind that sort of plugged your ear. They were flesh colored and they didn't have the thing hanging off the back, which I just found annoying I never did them. So I knew I needed help. But I just didn't like the annoyance of getting the hardware off the back of my ears. So I started searching around. And one of the places you talked about, the Consumer Electronic Show, one of the things that has won technology awards are actually in the ear canal hearing aids. Yeah. And so what I did was look, there's one called Eargo. There it is.
You have one.
Look at that, Eargo. And they actually
I'm around you all the time, and I've never noticed.
And you never knew it. And a
No.
lot of people don't wear them because of cosmesis. They're worried about cosmetic appearance, women and men, and they don't do them. And it makes a huge difference. It has programs that you just do with an app on your phone, TV, restaurant, meeting, whatever. So I beg you, I beg my patients every day, because guys especially come in with hearing loss. It tends to predominate in guys a lot of times in mid-Missouri because they're shooting their guns and stuff. And if they're working
wearing
in
headphones
an environment
for
like that.
Yeah, I am always on my husband for the volume of his headphones.
Well, you're gonna reduce
hoping for some thunder snow. But...
Hannah, you ready?
Sure.
You got a volunteer fire guy you're married to. I mean, man, you can handle any kind of calamity.
Yeah, but he has to go out when there's bad weather, and that makes me nervous.
John, you all ready? You geared up?
Yeah, all I'll have to do is go outside and chip the big smelly farm dogs loose. But yeah, that's...
And I'm not so sad about having to stay inside. I have a lot of stuff I want to catch up on, but having 3 kids inside trapped where they're going to maybe want to go outside and play and I'm going to have to tell them no. I like your idea of just board games all the time, and I'm interested. Does anyone have any? We have recently started playing Sky Joe. I really like that.
What is
a card
that?
game. It's a card game. Someone said there's a game with regular cards that it's similar to, but you lay out cards and you try to get to the lowest number. It's pretty fun, and it's all ages, even the little guys can play.
I like a complex game like War.
Go fish.
I like Go Fish, or you know what? My kids get really tickled at Old Maid, and I remember playing Old Maid with my grandma, and they just give it away on their face every time they draw the Old Maid. They're they just can't even.
And
you've got it.
Let's not forget, because the kids are pent up. Yeah, there's no snow. It's too cold, even if there were to go out for any length of time. Twister is a great family game to play during these times. It's fun, and everyone's laughing and hilarious. No?
I don't
Especially if you're a chiropractor.
I've got this question posted on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page, too, and we're getting lots of folks chiming in. So if you need some inspiration,
there you go.
Check out the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page.
My mom and brother and sister, they live down in the Union St. Clair area and with their spouses, and they love to play Farkle. Farkle. And I'm not really a Farkle guy, but they love to play Farkle. But my kids do as well. The economy has been Farkling, whatever that means. At least some of us think. But Bidenomics, you'd think if you listen to the White House, is a great thing. Aaron Hedlund, chief economist at Show Me, joins us now to unpack yesterday's CPI and inflation numbers. And maybe, Aaron, if you're willing, a little crystal ball for what 24 might bring. How you doing, my friend?
Doing well. Crystal balls are always dangerous, but I'll do my best.
And I know, and we don't worry. Hannah has the tape rolling, and you'll be held to everything that you say. No, we won't do that. Well, everyone was, I think, earlier. The last time the Fed met, everyone was excited that they were hinting at a pause and maybe even lowering the rates, and some of the mortgage rates started to come down, and everyone was sort of, maybe the soft landing's coming, and then we see this persistence in above desirable inflation. What say you?
Yeah, so the numbers came in, and it came in at 3.4%, and there's different versions of that people can look at, but essentially the reality is we're not down to 2. We're right about at 2. We're still obviously a lot better than we were last summer, but it's mission not yet accomplished. And this is what I've been saying for a while, which is that getting down to 1,000 feet, if you're flying, going towards the airport, you don't say mission done. You have to actually get on the ground. And so I think, to me, discussions of Fed rate cuts at this point are premature.
Okay, so what are there anomalous drivers of this persistent, higher than desirable inflation rate? I mean, is this something that's just sort of a bump in the road, in terms of the core rate and so forth, or is this something that really is problematic?
I mean, housing is definitely one driver of things. That's been a factor for a while now, and there's many things we should really be doing about housing to get those costs down. But really, it's something. It's not just one driver. It's not just gas prices or something. In fact, actually, gas prices were factors that were bringing down the inflation rate the previous 2 months. And that's why, generally speaking, the Fed doesn't look at gas prices, because it's kind of outside of its control. So, again, it's definitely been progress from the 9% inflation we were at. And it has nothing to do with any kind of federal government policies that's brought us down. It's been entirely the Fed jacking up rates to get us there, and that's caused some degree of pain. But we have to get down to 2. That's the thing that we've learned from previous lessons, is that when the Federal Reserve says they're going to do something, if they don't do it and people lose faith in their ability to do it, then it becomes that much more difficult to keep inflation under control.
That's Aaron Hedlund. He's with the Show Me Institute, the chief economist there on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on a Feel Good Friday. those ever-rising prices don't feel very good, do they, John?
No, Aaron, I know, like you said, the Fed doesn't track along with gas prices and all that, but now we're seeing all the new turmoil in the Mideast and the U.S. strikes on the Houthi rebels and all. What do you think we're going to see here in mid-Missouri? You know, that's a big issue for a lot of folks. You talk economy to folks, they'll shoot right back at you. Well, what about the gas pump?
Yeah, and there's no doubt gas prices are an incredibly important thing. I mean, and this is the tragedy of when Biden would talk about, the Putin price hike, which was such a joke because gas prices had already gone up quite a bit before that. And it's been nice relief over the past several months to have gas prices down to kind of more reasonable levels. But then we see all this geopolitical instability, the lack of American leadership, and it's really quite unfortunate in a number of ways.
Now, you worked in the Trump White House in the Trump administration, and he recently said, hey, if I don't get elected, we are going to have a recession. What is your overall feeling on how the 2024 election might affect the economy?
Well, I think the stakes are high for a number of reasons, but one of which is the fact that all the tax cuts that were passed and that people are still benefiting from, they expire starting in 2025. Unless they're extended. So that is one of the major issues that are going to confront people. And we're talking about, several $1,000s of tax hikes for the average person. We're not just talking tax cuts for the rich that the left always talks about. So I absolutely do think we will enter recession territory if we end up having big tax hikes in 2025.
Yeah, you haven't heard much of that on the stump. Sort of like, hey, if you elect me, I'm going to be a buffer against your taxes going back up. I have not heard that from even the Republican candidates. Maybe I haven't been listening, but they usually sing the regular song of, I'm going to keep your taxes low. But I mean, that's a specific threat that people don't realize. Aaron, I got to tell you, Tuesday, in the Wall Street Journal, top of the fold, home auto insurers jack up rates, pull back from markets. They chronicle how Allstate and others basically threaten that if they can't get their way with insurance regulators, this one featured California, but other states, or New Jersey was featured, that they're just going to take their marbles and go home and not underwrite insurance. I mean, and they're talking about rates going up 20, 30% for housing. And we've all seen it for our auto and home due to wildfires and others. I don't hear much about that impact on inflation, but it's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we are in the middle of a cost of living crisis. I mean, and the thing is, even if inflation gets down to 2%, which of course I hope it does, that does nothing to reverse the price hikes that we've been seeing. And if we go back to 2021, it's been about, we're getting close to a 20% price hike cumulatively since then, and people's wages have not jumped by 20%. But we've seen a $4,000 decline in purchasing power from 2019 to 2022. That's effectively saying people's paychecks in terms of what they can buy have shrunk by $4,000. And the census data hasn't been updated for 2023, but based on the CPI stuff we've been looking at, essentially people had flat paychecks in 2023. So they're still behind. Yeah, homeowner insurance, that's just one element among many of the cost of living crisis.
The other thing I saw on Twitter yesterday that has me feeling nervous for 2024 is there's been mass tech layoffs since the first of the year. And I saw a list, and I won't read them all, but they said Google, Amazon Prime, X, Twitch, Humane, Unity, Front Desk, Xerox, BlackRock, Cloudflare. I mean, there are a lot of companies doing a lot of layoffs. Should we be worried by that?
So I don't think the labor market is going to fall off the cliff anytime soon, or at least that's not the first shoe that's going to drop if we do enter kind of a weaker period. I think, to me, the first thing I'm looking at is consumer spending, because the third quarter GDP number last year, which is still the most recent number we have, that was a big number, and people were all celebrating it, during the fact that there's no way it was sustainable. Because if you look under the hood, it was driven entirely by consumer spending. And that was driven by kind of a blip in income earlier in the year and people exhausting all the pandemic money. So I'm anticipating consumer spending is going to slow down a lot. If it slows down dramatically, then that could lead to more layoffs and kind of a spiraling effect. So we'll have to kind of track that.
Talking with Aaron Hedlund. Before we let you go, Aaron, another stat that I saw was that office vacancies are the highest on record. 20% of available office space sits vacant. Is that just a transposition of productive workers to the remote economy, or is this, in fact, another potential canary in the coal mine?
Yeah, the commercial real estate and especially office is something I am concerned about and very much following, because office space vacancy is high, and part of this is the shift to remote work. There actually aren't that many jobs fully remote, but about 30% of work days are, and it seems like that has stabilized. So the idea that we go back to a completely pre-COVID degree of remote work seems implausible. So employers don't need as much space, at least some of them. And so the vacancies are part of the concern to me, but the other part of the concern is the fact that interest rates are so much higher. And interest rates are higher because the Fed had to fight inflation that was caused in no small part by the dramatically excessive government spending. So there's actually been a study done that's looked at what this means for small banks. And there are some small banks that could really be, let's just say, threatened in terms of their viability because of all these loans that are likely to go bad.
All right. Well, we're just seeing a lot of clouds on the horizon. That's the way I'm going to interpret this discussion. And even though it's a feel-good Friday, I think that there's enough concern out there, as you've illustrated, that's what makes asking politicians on the stump, writing letters, it makes it so important, and keeping an eye on the news and an ear to Wake Up Mid-Missouri when we talk to you again very soon, we hope. Aaron, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, and stay warm this weekend and beyond. Aaron Hedlund from the Show Me Institute. When we come back, we're going to find out what's going on in Hannah's hot world, and boy, I hope she's going to have something about
Exactly.
I'm better today than I was yesterday. That's the way we're going to view this.
You're beating the school districts by or they're beating you by just one day. They've got 2 of 5 so far. So
I am not typically the one in What's Hot with Hannah to give nutritional advice because look at me, I shouldn't be giving nutritional advice. However, I found a story that supports one of my habits, and it's maybe suggesting that one of my habits is healthy, and I would like to present that to the doctor this morning.
Well, what is it? I'm ready.
is it an energy light?
I have a patient coming in at 10 o'clock, so maybe I can relay your healthy information to them.
Okay, so the amino acid called taurine or taurine, I looked up the pronouncer and I saw both. So I'm going with taurine. It is found in a lot of proteins like meat and seafood, things like that. There is a lot of science right now supporting that taurine might slow the aging process in animals. They've tested it on mice and monkeys, and they've seen really positive results in those 2 studies. But you know what taurine is also an additive in?
Tell me.
Anyone?
I don't know.
Coffee.
Energy drinks.
Oh.
What?
Oh, there you
Yeah.
go.
It's supposed to, they put it in energy drinks because it's supposed to help with like brain sharpness, brain focus. And so what I'm hearing is that my energy drink habit could potentially be slowing the aging process.
So based on a mice and monkey experiment, you're going to spend buku bucks on expensive water with a few molecules of taurine in it. Is that what I'm hearing there?
Well, that, but also, protein-rich foods that it's found naturally in. I mean, it's all about balance, Randy.
It's from, you find it in meat and shellfish. Your body can metabolize an amino acid called cysteine and can sort of turn into that as well. But, it's a popular supplement. But, if you look at the label of your energy drink, Hannah, it's like 2 milligrams of vitamin B6 or 10 milligrams of this or 15 of that. That's like, as my grandpappy said, peeing in the ocean, And
There's
200 milligrams of caffeine.
There you
Exactly.
go.
The one I've got this morning is 1,000 milligrams of taurine, though.
Oh, well, and I can tell you're energetic. We're having to strap you into the seat like you're on a turbulent
Red
flight.
Bull gives you wings.
There you go. Yeah.
But in monkeys, when they were supplemented with taurine, they prevented age-related weight gain, improved fasting blood sugar levels, increased bone density, and led to healthier livers and improved immune system function.
Yeah, they still throw their poop at you.
Well, I think we can agree, though, that it being a component of protein, right, amino acids or proteins, that is, I think, a vote for a little more protein in our diet and a little less carbs, especially those processed starchy things, right?
Now I
And
feel
energy drinks.
And now I'm feeling triggered.
Why is that?
Because carbs are way better. I know a high protein. Morning.
And producer Hannah.
Hello.
And John. Are you wearing your red, John?
Sure.
Okay, sure. Whatever. Sounds good. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, on YouTube. We're not on Twitter, right?
As a show, we're not, but we all have.
Yeah. Oh, I know
handles.
we have our Twitter, but we don't broadcast on the Twitter. Yeah.
And importantly, like we do say, like, check us out. But importantly, like YouTube has a feature where you can subscribe.
Yeah.
So when our video goes live, like you get notified. Facebook, you can actually follow us. You can actually go invite your friends too. So we'd love if you, I've been seeing a lot of small business owners reminding people like, hey, if you like my business, like it helps me out if you go and share it. And I think
it's free.
And it's free. Like, it's free. You know, we don't ask you for a whole lot, but like, hey, this is one way to like spread the good word.
You betcha. We enjoy and appreciate you being with us. You can be a big part of the show if you want to call in and text in 573-874-9390. Brian Hauswirth joins us. We're going to cover the news in a minute, but I think that the solution to division ultimately, whether it's a personal relationship conflict, whether it's at work, ultimately, what usually, if someone has the courage, what usually breaks the logjam? Humor. Humor provides those kind of relational connections that can sometimes, connect us. Well, the other day in the hearing about Hunter Biden, Pramila Jayapal, one of our favorite members of the squad, I'm not saying she's going to rise to the level of a winner, but certainly I think it's good that she recognized the little foible she made, and she got a good chuckle out of it. Here it is.
We're going to talk about outrageous things that have happened or things that have never happened. Let's talk about the fact that President Trump incited an erection. And maybe that too.
Yeah, you can talk about that too, I guess.
Talk about your ever-Trumpers, huh?
President Trump incited an erection.
And who?
And she laughed, and everyone got a big chuckle. I mean, I think that's good kind of stuff.
Oh, that's mortifying.
And in that same vein, we had a good chuckle because Stephanie had a funny moment here during the break that you've all done it. I did it just the other day.
Dare I say it was almost a senior moment?
It was hilarious.
Awful. I've been frustrated because I'm like, where is my phone? I can't find my phone. And I'm trying to get some more B-roll and video of the show. And of course, all morning I've been adjusting the phone, trying to record in the studio. So I finally get so frustrated that I can't find my phone. I use my watch to ding the phone, and it's on the video stand taking a video of us. So you guys, now that was hilarious.
And Stephanie was the one who wanted to take the video in the first place.
We've all done that. The phone is on the counter just behind you, and you say, where's the phone?
Yeah.
It's in your
You're
pocket.
talking on it.
No, you laugh. I have done that before.
No.
I was on the phone with someone, and I said, hang on, I can't find my phone. I'll call you back. I hung up, and about 2 minutes later, I went, wait a second. And I called the person back, and they were like, I was wondering how long it would take you to catch on.
You know what's a harrowing experience, though? Helene's out with my daughter and the grandkids and helping her out.
I've been batching it up.
And I've been batching. We don't have a landline. Now, I'm sure all of us, many of you don't have a landline, right? You're the one member.
I have one.
What's a landline?
Of course you do, Brian.
Well, here's the problem, though.
Safety first.
When I lose my phone, I depend on her phone to call me. Yeah. What happens if she's not around? How do I get in touch with one of you to call me because I don't have a phone? I mean, it's been keeping me awake at night. I don't know what I'd do.
I have a phone service through my Alexa. That you can
through your what? Another technology moment?
Like we can dial out on it, like
really?
Just like a regular phone. Yeah.
On your computer?
No, on my smart speaker.
Oh, I don't do that.
We know.
Do you want the government and Amazon and Jeff Bezos knowing about what everything you do and say?
You just said you walk around with your phone all the time. They already know.
Yeah, they know.
True. Touche. You're right. Brian, for those just joining us, the weather today, no snow bomb coming, right? At least in mid-Missouri.
There's no snow bomb coming, nothing like that. But basically, the forecast has been tweaked, obviously. We were looking potentially at 2 to 8 inches. I know for people heading to Iowa for the caucuses, they're going to be getting the biggest bulk of this snow. So here is our situation right now. The forecast as of this morning, which has been tweaked numerous times. I talked to Matt Beitcher this morning and also to Kevin Deitch over at the Weather Service in St. Louis. They're looking at basically Columbia being 1 degree today, a wind chill about noon. The snow will start coming in about 9, and we may get a burst or two of snow, a couple of bursts. Looking potentially at some traces, not looking at much accumulation, but the biggest thing they're looking at is 2 things. Number 1, dangerously low. They're using the word and term life-threatening wind chills that will take place through Wednesday. We could see some record cold temperatures in most of our listening area. And it is life-threatening. It's life-threatening if you lack proper attire. So be very careful going out. We're looking at, it's going to feel like minus 10 in Columbia tomorrow, minus 23 Sunday, minus 30 on Monday. That'd be minus 23 on Sunday. And then we're looking at 45-mile-an-hour winds, maybe up to 50-mile-an-hour winds in Columbia. Virtually all the schools in the listening area are closed today, and they've also canceled the MLK Day of Service at Cosmo Park for tomorrow. So I think the fact that you're keeping a lot of the buses off the roads, that's going to help because they are trying to treat. But if we get any snow, and people may think, well, it's just going to be, flurries or whatever. If it sticks and it's wet, that's going to freeze, and that's what we need to be concerned about. There could potentially cause some problems.
John, what's going on weather-wise in your world in Jefferson City?
Very, very foggy. Watch your driving as you head in this morning. It wasn't that foggy earlier on here in mid-Missouri. I know Hannah said she had some patchy fog. I did too a few hours ago, but man, oh man, it's rolled in.
Yeah. So be careful out there and, slow down. Slow down when you see the fog. I mean, just because you can see 20 feet in front of you doesn't mean that there's not something 40 feet in front of you.
That's exactly right. John, I'm glad you brought up the fog. We're not really having that issue here. At least I didn't experience that this morning in Columbia. I'm not seeing anything, but it is just the ground is extremely saturated right now, and it is, these bitterly cold temperatures. People need to be able to get out and do some exercising, but if they do and they have to go outside, you really need to bundle up. It's rough out, and the bathroom, the restrooms in all the Columbia parks are closed until further notice because it's so cold, and they're worried about pipes bursting.
Well, with as cold as it is, though, Randy, I think we're seeing things heat up in the presidential race.
We sure are. Rand Paul, big announcement this morning.
And he teased this announcement yesterday. And we talk about endorsements and, who do you, most of them I'm like, I don't really care. But when he teased this yesterday, I was like, I care what Rand Paul's going to say. And I think other people out there might care, too. And the way that he made the announcement today,
full of suspense.
It's interesting.
And he keeps the suspense going.
Good morning, everyone. As I told you yesterday, I'm ready to say something about the presidential race. I've had a long relationship with Donald Trump, and there's a lot to like there. I'm also a big fan of a lot of the fiscal conservatism of Ron DeSantis. I think Vivek Ramaswamy's been an important voice. Also have listened to and met with the independent Bobby Kennedy. I'm not yet ready to make a decision, but I am ready to make a decision on someone who I cannot support. So I'm announcing this morning that I'm Never Nikki. And if you go to nevernikki.net, you can let her know that you're not a supporter either.
Wow.
You know what it reminds me of? Remember when Trump was teasing that he was going to support someone in the Missouri Senate race? And then he came out with a statement that said he was supporting Eric.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there were a couple different Erics running.
I know, I remember.
At least 2.
And even more than that, he came out contrary to Vicky Hartzler, and she was actually gaining steam in her race until Trump said, I forget exactly what he said, but it wasn't favorable.
No, he basically called her a rhino. And, the interesting thing, if you look at Vicky Hartzler's record, and I was taken aback by his comments about her, she voted against the January 6th commission. She voted for the wall. Vicky Hartzler voted with President Trump on, I can't think, and I'm going from my memory, I can't think of any major issue. They may have had a few differences. I really can't recall one, though, but something must have happened. I don't know, but he did attack her. And that really was the beginning of the end of her campaign.
Well, and it's interesting because, Nikki Haley came out at the last debate with that website, DeSantis Lies, and I just visited nevernikki.net, and there's Rand Paul and like a bad photo of Nikki and talking bad about her. So,
wow.
A war of websites.
A negative endorsement. That's interesting.
I've never heard of such a thing.
That's sort of Christie-esque. Really, because Christie, he was out, I'm going to do whatever I can. That was the whole plank of the foundation of his campaign. And even when he suspended his campaign, it's like, I'm going to do whatever I can do to prevent Donald Trump from getting in there. And then off mic, he's like, oh, Nikki doesn't have the right stuff.
Well, and I find it really interesting because I think on a lot of policy issues, I would say she's a little bit more moderate and more measured. And so I would have assumed like someone like Rand Paul with being a little bit libertarian. And I've even heard, I listen to a lot of libertarian podcasts, and some of those people are like, I really like her on this issue, and this issue more than the others. But certainly on the war front and on international affairs, libertarians call her a hawk. So it must be, I assume that's why we're getting the Never Nikki. I haven't dug down into Rand Paul's position, but. Yeah.
And I don't know if maybe they've had differences before, but there is a difference in the approach and there's a difference in the style. Randy, you and I are old enough to remember that we had a president in this country named Ronald Reagan. He had an 11th commandment: thou shalt not speak ill of another Republican. And I look at all these people running on the Republican side, and I'm not sure any of them remember the 11th commandment. Do our listeners even know what the 11th commandment is? I hope they would. I mean, it was really a core. When he ran against George Bush in 1980, yes, they had policy issues. He then took him as his vice president. He didn't attack him. He focused his attacks on the president of the United States. But these candidates here, almost none of them talk about Biden. I don't hear them talking about the president at all. They talk about each other. That comment from the senator from Kentucky is very interesting.
Well, and
very interesting.
And his website is completely devoted to her time with the UN and then on war. One quote from the website: her thirst for war is so strong, she actually said, I'm sick of talking about a Department of Defense. I want a Department of Offense. Hashtag Never Nikki.
Wow. Remember Rand Paul back in the day when when they started doing appointments and all? And there was, John Bolton and Rudy Giuliani and all them. He went after everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had issues with some of the president's appointments, but yeah, it is interesting. And
Rand Paul is effective as a voice in the American political class and someone we like to listen to.
Pretty popular.
But he's not very effective in the legislative sense. He doesn't get much done.
To a certain extent, but he is very popular in his state, the bluegrass state.
And he's popular, like I said, his voice is important. We need to be reminded of limited government. We're all on that page. We need to be reminded
Talk to a libertarian about how popular Rand Paul is.
Yeah.
And his dad.
And he is more, I would argue, he is probably more popular within the base, the Republican base in his state, than McConnell is, who's the minority leader. But
Bob
Menendez sure doesn't like him.
No.
Well, that would be a feather in anyone's cap to say that Bob Menendez. Bob Menendez, if you're listening, would you please come out and say you don't like me or anyone else on Wake Up Mid Missouri? I think we'd love that endorsement. Yeah. All right. Well, John, what kind of quirky and off the wall stuff might be coming our way?
Yeah, freak. Outdoor clothing manufacturer Patagonia. They're all about staying physically active. They give you a bike. They have a volleyball court. They have on-site yoga. But their unique take, since they're in Ventura and Southern California in the LA area, employees are encouraged to catch a wave or two in the middle of the workday. They even put up surf reports on especially good days, so you can head out to Surfer's Point if you're down there in LA. Facebook, 3 free meals a day, 5 days a week. They have 2 cafes, a barbecue shack, a burger bar, pizza stand, a taqueria, and a sweet shop. How about Gold Belly, the bunch sort of like DoorDash? Their ideas for their employees: unlimited free delivery from awesome restaurants like Lou Malnati's Pizza in Chicago. But topping the list, the commies you love to hate, Ben & Jerry's rewards its employees still with 3 pints of ice cream every day, and they're encouraged to share that with their friends and loved ones, and say they even have a say-so in what they name the ice cream. So now you know the rest of that story. Past the energy drinks.
Wow.
Funny would be discouraging that.
What was that?
I bet their health insurance company would be discouraging the ice cream handout. Not good for claims if they're self-insured.
Well, I've seen a lot of the, trendier, bigger company workspaces even adding in things like panic rooms and nap pods. I think that those are cool.
A lot of the .coms rolled a lot of that stuff back ever since they started. What they say on Fox News? That Google talking about a total potentially of 12,000 layoffs.
Oof.
And remember when Elon Musk took over Twitter? I mean, he did away with a lot of that stuff. He says, "Come on, man, that's not the way you run a business." And he brought people back from remote to working in the place too, right? Working on site.
Well, and some of those perks, like if I'm an employee and I see like all the free, like I don't want 3 pints of ice cream a day. Like what does that add up to? $10? I want that money in my paycheck, and then I want to be able to spend that. Don't give me a ping pong table at work. Like give me $50 extra a month. So if I really love ping pong, I can put a table at my house.
She hasn't bought Ben & Jerry's lately.
Yeah, it's more like $6.
Now, but remember, Loka Pandya, our guest earlier in the program, the joy officer, talking about how people want a workplace that's accommodating. They want more time off work. But, I mean, there's probably a balance there in terms of accommodations at work.
Well, I've also heard, though, that companies that have a lot of bougie offerings like that, typically...
What was that called?
Bougie.
What's that mean?
Oh, no.
Like bourgeois?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the takeoff of the bourgeois.
Well, see, okay, I'll explain when you finish why I did a double take there.
Okay. But I've heard that their retirement benefits and like their health insurance benefits aren't as good because they spend all this money on the cool stuff for the office rather than benefits.
So
No, I'm all for like burgundy and maroon being allowed because I used to get a hard time on the show when I would wear that color.
Well, we
Fridays.
wear red on Fridays because, of course, that's for remembering everyone deployed. And
Hannah just keeps reminding you that your shirt is brown because your camera's upside down, and it's been upside down all morning. And she was hoping that you would notice, but then you just keep saying, I don't think my shirt's brown, looking right at yourself, and you look like a bat hanging upside down.
I'm focusing on my brown.
And I can't tell who's the bigger troll, like Hannah trolling you by turning your camera upside down, but you trolling her by refusing to acknowledge.
I was going to say, I think he's trolling me.
It's all about, I'm not going to take the bait. Not going to take the bait.
I'm going to pick up all the change that falls out of his pocket.
Actually, one of our big bosses, within 5 minutes of me doing it, texted me a screenshot of the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook Live feed.
Yeah.
Said, is there any particular reason that Randy's upside down?
Well, I'm not upside down, but it's a foggy day, and I've got a little musical interlude for you. And then we're going to get to Holly Swenson about some... We would listen to the stereo, the console stereo that looked like furniture, but there was a turntable in it and you know what I mean, don't you?
Sure.
All right. Well, that's the kind of family activity that brought us together and enlightened us with the Great American Songbook. Now, we introduce you to Holly Swenson, a mom of 4, a nurse, a blogger, and an author. And she's going to help us with some mindful parenting. Her book is Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow. How you doing, Holly?
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me on.
Even though you got 4 kids, that means you're probably too young to know a lot about Sinatra. No? Yes?
I know who he is. I definitely love his music at Christmas time, especially.
So many of the new singers, Lady Gaga and others, they will, if you ask them about Sinatra, they took a lot of their stylization and get some tips from him. There's never a better stylist. So everyone in mid-Missouri, Holly, for the next few days is going to be hunkered down because we're looking at sub-zero temperatures. It's an opportunity to sort of think about your parenting, be mindful about it, and take the opportunity to really, maybe re-engineer it a little bit, right?
Absolutely. We're having sub-temperatures here as well. We're close to negative 40 this morning.
Where are you?
I live in Montana.
Holy cow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so tell us about what inspired you to write the book, Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow, and what folks listening can maybe begin to take home as some advice and with some target goals of that advice as they think about their parenting this weekend and beyond.
Sure. Yeah. So, I'm an author on the rise, and I'm really on a mission to bring more wellness, joy, and intentionality to parenting and beyond. And so writing this book was really a deep calling in a way I could be of service to parents everywhere. Because I'm a mother of 4, I've had to learn a lot of things, right? As any parent can tell you, it's a continually unfolding journey. And so I really, as I look out in the world, I just, we've got a mental health crisis going on. We've got a lot of issues that I think are in need of some refinement. And so I wrote this book because I wanted to give parents tools to, really prioritize their own self-care, because I think when you start prioritizing yourself, you're going to show up as a better parent. I've absolutely learned that to be a truth for myself. When I make time to take care of me, even if it's 20 minutes a day, it helps you to reset and recenter your energy so that you show up for your loved ones in a way that's the way you mean to, because you do need to have an awareness of how you're showing up, both for yourself and for your family. And so I created this framework that will help take parenting to the next level and will help you infuse some of what I'm talking about into your life. There's a lot of layers to it, but it's very simple. And the framework is in my title: Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow.
All right. You take your healthcare profession, your nursing, and sort of translate to some of the messages in the book. I've had a chance to peruse a little bit of it. Talk about the 5 rights of parenting, the 5 rights of parenting.
Yeah. So the 5 rights of parenting are really a spinoff of the 5 rights of medication administration. As a nurse, you have to do these 5 checks before you administer medication. And so for me, I wanted to put a parenting spin on it. And so the 5 rights of parenting in a nutshell, number 1 is right now, which means that you are, showing up in the moment. You're being present for your children. You're not texting, not working on 3 other things while your kiddo's asking for your time and attention. And, there are moments where you can't show up right now. And so if that's the case, then you set a time like, hey, I'm in the middle of something, but in, 20 minutes, let's focus on this together and really show up for them. Don't be distracted because it's important. And it sets, it's a good role modeling for them for how to engage with their loved ones when they get older. Number 2 is right intent. And right intent is showing up for your child intentionally, being intentional in how you treat them, the choices you make, the guidelines you set, and the framework you use as a parent. So this is just really showing up in life with some intention and knowing, why you're doing what you're doing. And if you don't really know why you're doing what you're doing, then maybe spend some time thinking about, how you can become more intentional and more aware in how you're acting. Number 3 is the right use of speech, and I believe this is a really critical component of effective parenting because how you speak to your child is one of the most important aspects of raising your young. Your voice is really a tool of creation, and so it has the power to create a positive or negative mood. And so, and I also think this is one of the hardest rights to remember, especially if your kiddo's kind of losing their marbles. You've got to hold your own while they're losing it, and that takes practice and it takes discipline. So I think that's super important. Number 4 is the right use of power. And the right use of power is also big because you're the guiding light for your kid. You're the one who wields power. You decide on discipline and you set the boundaries. And so you want to make sure you're using care while you're implementing this one. And then finally, number 5 is the right use of love. And this is my favorite one. I believe love is the cure for all that ails us, parenting and beyond. And, I think this right should be used as many times a day as you can aspire to. Letting your kid know you love them is never going to steer you in the wrong direction, and it will set them on a course for total success in their life.
I think that's such good advice, especially as we head into a weekend. I've got 3 kiddos myself, and we're heading into a very cold weekend, and what would normally be, some time outside, some time at some sporting events. It sounds like I'm going to be completely in a bunker with 3 kiddos who it's going to be so cold they're not able to get out all of their energy. So for other moms like me in Missouri who aren't used to such frigid temperatures, when you're in that like confined space and there's really not a lot to do other than be on top of each other, right? And kind of in each other's way all weekend. What would you suggest?
Well, I'm kind of old school. So, especially when kids can't get out and play, pull out the board games. Try to do something, do an activity, do something that is not necessarily screen related, like maybe watch the movies or, let them be on their screens for part of the time because that's what kids enjoy, but also make time for family, family stuff. So where you're all engaged, where you're all showing up, when you have meal time, make sure everyone's tuned into the meal, put the screens down, make eye contact, have good conversation, and, try to infuse some fun into this. We're all kind of holed up this weekend, and I'm included. I'm going to have all 4 of ours at home too. So we'll all power through together.
We're talking with Holly Swenson, and it's a great read of Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow. It's about intentional parenting and some good practical advice. And there's an infusion of some physiology in there about how to take care of yourself and making sure that your hormones are in balance, that you're sleeping well, and because you can't really. It's sort of that old when the airplane is having a problem and the oxygen mask drop down, you don't put it on the kid first. You put it on yourself first, and that's a metaphor I think for parenting in that way. That said, you mentioned put down your phone if your kid needs your attention, or, say, I will put down my phone in 5 minutes and give you that attention. What do you say about the general disruption in relationships, and especially those family relationships with social media? And what can we do about it?
Yeah, social media is definitely a big part of people's lives, kids and adults. And so I think you have to, I mentioned role modeling earlier, and I think role modeling is a big part of that because a lot of parents are on social media and a lot of kids are on social media. So, your kids are following your lead in many instances. And so I think we need to remember the human-to-human connection. I mean, we live in this virtual reality so much of the day for a lot of people, and it's like we are missing that component. And I think that's a root cause for a lot of the unhappiness that people are feeling. we're missing that human to human connection. And so you have to teach that. And I think it starts at home. You've got to teach your kids, like, hey, it's good to have your friends online, but it's important to, like, if you're with your friends, put your phones down and, hang out with them, go play, be kids. I think kids are losing their childhood because they're kind of sucked into this adult world that's not totally serving them in a healthy way. I mean, there's good parts of social media. It helps them feel connected, but, and it's entertaining and all of that. But I think it's too much for most kids. I think they're on it too much. And that's part of this anxiety and depression and these things we're seeing that's coming out that's not having the best impact.
Well, thanks for writing the book. Thanks for the advice. There's lots of great practical advice and a lot of science and evidence-based information in there. So it's a great book. And it's, again, called Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow by our guest, Holly Swenson. Available on all the usual suspects. Right, Holly?
Absolutely, yes.
All right. Be a good idea to download it on your Kindle if you can't get to the bookstore or can't get it in time for this weekend. Get some reading done, guys and gals, and help readjust your parenting to be the maximally effective that you can. Thanks so much for being with us. Stay warm in that minus 30-degree weather up there in Montana. Holy cow.
You too. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
All right, you too. It is important once in a while to sort of take that look in the mirror as a parent and go, I know I had problems when I was developing a practice and so busy. Once I was just told by a dear friend, it's like, hey, you don't have to have the answer for your kid. Just sit there and listen. Just be there. Look them in the eye. I'm like, oh, I don't have to fix it tomorrow? No, you don't.
It's tough. It's really tough, especially when you got a lot going on. But yeah, sometimes they just want to tell you about their day. And it's sweet. Now that my kids are older, they'll say, how was your day, Mom?
Oh, there you go.
Sweet.
That's a connection. All right, when we come back, we'll check in the morning bell, see what's going on in the markets and maybe those commodities too, with all of the kinetic action.
Here, real quick, we've been talking about the cold weather, but we are getting word that many of the flights, both arrivals and departures out of COU, are being canceled. So check flycou.com, and of course, check with your carrier, American Airlines, to check on those flights.
I wonder if that has a lot to do with the wind. If we're talking about 45-mile-an-hour wind, maybe that presents a problem.
I suspect
it's an issue. Apparently, they've got a ground stop at Chicago O'Hare, and that's a hub for American flying into there. They're talking 8 to 11 inches of snow in Chicagoland.
Yeah, but I'm also seeing some cancellations for the Dallas flights too. So be sure and be on the lookout. But yeah, it might be some combination of the two. So I want to give you a heads up there. Certainly, if you have family that is out of town and coming back, keep an eye on that. Also, just a quick look at the markets this morning. Holding steady. Dow's just barely down. S&P, NASDAQ just barely up. But for your business news this morning, I've seen two interesting stories this week that I thought I think both give us a lesson in just being authentic and honest as business owners and leaders and employees. And I think so in one was a really, I think, terrible situation. And it's like, what do you do as a business owner? There was a coffee shop in Indiana and a couple showed up. And they thought, they're coming in for a meeting or something, and they thought it would be a handful of people. Nope, they showed up in their full wedding garb with the preacher, brought 20 people, and hosted their wedding inside a coffee shop while it was in operation, basically taking over the whole place so that they couldn't really help, many other people. And they said, yeah, they bought like a couple of coffees, but, and they're like, we do shut down for private events, but for a fee. And so they went on social media and said, hey, we need to address this. Like, we're not just, even though we're open to the public, we are a small business. And, if you want to come have your wedding here, cool. But like, we need a heads up on that. And I think that's a really tough choice as a business owner to kind of call somebody out. But they did it in a way that was authentic and explained, this is hurting our business and this is how we operate. And here's why, we're frustrated with the situation. And I think people really took the side of the coffee shop and said, that's kind of rude to show up and have your wedding without anybody giving you a heads up. In another way, we're seeing some of these tech layoffs and we're seeing some virality on TikTok. One gal, I think she got fired from Cloudflare, basically streamed the Zoom of her getting fired, and it's awful to watch. I mean, she's upset, and her direct manager's not on the line, and it just made Cloudflare look, pretty harsh. They have taken to Twitter and are kind of explaining, hey, look, we hate the way that this happened. Her manager should have been on the line. We understand that now. And, she was frustrated because she had only been there for a short time, but they said, hey, the best thing we can do for someone is if they're not a good fit, which we can tell pretty early on, is to get them somewhere else where they will be a good fit and can succeed. It doesn't do us any good and them any good to string it along. And so they've been pretty authentic so they're getting some bad hate on socials, but they're taking to Twitter and kind of saying, here's what happened. Here's why we did what
start with Stephanie. Winners and losers of the week.
You're starting with me?
Yeah.
Okay, my winners of the week. So one winner of the week is the Missouri legislature. Yeah, I know.
A challenge.
It's a hard
challenge
one,
to the
but
winners.
I will say that, they've done a lot of talking about education reform, and they got out early, had some big hearings this week, and are trying, so I like to see that in that, we heard from Senator Koenig this week that, his strategy is to try to go early. They've said it's an important issue, and I think this week they're putting their money where their mouth is and getting out in front of on education. And so kudos to them. I might be cursing them in like 3 weeks, and they might be switching lists. But I think that's my big one. And I'm with Texter John, who told us losers of the week, whoever has been in charge of calling off school this week.
Oh, wow. Oh, I think those are fighting words with Brian Hauswirth.
Yeah.
Brian, you're up next.
I'll go west. I'll go west.
Producer Hannah?
I have a loser of the week.
Yes?
And that is Jess Piper.
Oh.
The former educator failed to get elected, turned Twitter troll Jess Piper, who has a large Twitter following. She likes to be real hypercritical of folks in the political landscape, especially in the state of Missouri, and she got busted by the ethics committee for what was it, Stephanie? A campaign donation that went to the wrong place, or was...
Yeah, we call it donation.
A surrogate donation?
Donation in the name of another.
Yeah, there we go. She was slapped with a $1,000 fine for that one, which was kind of nice to see because she's a hypocrite, and it just kind of put her on display for everyone. And she's so critical of everyone else that it was nice to kind of see her take some heat.
All right. John Marsh, your winners and losers for the week.
Well, I've got a couple winners and potentially a whole group of losers. How about 3rd District Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer for knowing when it's time to call it quits and announcing his retirement. And now the potential replacements for Blaine are coming out of the woodwork. Jay Ashcroft for being a good sport after that kind of scary incident he went through with the swatting call the other day.
Good one.
And Chiefs fans, the cold game notwithstanding, it looks like a lot of talk moving around even after that $1.25 million sack payday. It looks like CJ, Chris Jones, could be leaving the Chiefs. It sure sounded like it.
Oh, okay. All right. Producer Hannah?
I didn't get to do my winner.
Oh, who is your winner?
Hang with me here, okay?
I'm ready.
My winner of the week is the University of Missouri chess team.
Oh, good.
It was announced this week that they won the 2024 Pan American Intercollegiate Championship.
They were on my flight coming back from San
really?
Diego.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, wow, really?
It's the first time that the team has placed in the tournament in the 78 years that the Mizzou chess team has been a thing. And it's considered like the top chess tournament in the U.S. And
beautiful.
They won it. So.
I love chess. What a great game.
And familiar to many in Missouri politics, Rex and Jeannie Singfield have been huge proprietors of chess in Missouri and have been trying to turn us into Missouri into like the chess capital of the world. And I know now that Dr. Jeannie Singfield's on the board of curators at Missouri, the University of Missouri,
Yeah.
I'm sure they're watching that really closely. And I think a lot of the chess success in Missouri is due to their work.
St. Louis is a real hub for chess. And
yeah, if you've never been to that, the chess Hall of Fame
museum, yeah.
I take the kiddos. It's cool.
I'm not smart enough for chess.
When I was in high school and I was taking Russian, and that's when Boris Spassky and Bobby Fischer were going head to head. You remember that, John and Brian? And we would go to Washington U and watch these chess tournaments, and it was a lot of fun. And
Brian, Hannah, if you're not smart enough, they have classes up there that you can take. And no, seriously, and they even for kiddos.
I think they have. And I think a lot of colleges there have teams now with even more than Mizzou. So
and you guys joke about my hoarding behavior. I just have a hard time throwing things away. I still have one of the earliest. It was from when my wife. It was one of my earliest gifts that my wife gave me. Maybe when we were even dating. I don't remember. And it was a thing where a pressure-sensitive chessboard, and when you would press your piece on the chessboard, it would
give
talk
you a big
out.
buzzer?
It would give you a vocal. Pawn moves from whatever 1 to space 2, and it would call it out. I still have it.
That's cool.
And I'm gonna play it tonight. Because
great.
it's going to get real cold.
Just
Brian?
don't try to play against those Mizzou players.
No, I will not do that. I will
You'll
not
probably
do that.
lose. You go ahead first, Randy.
Okay, so my winners are the linemen and women, the line workers, we've decided that they need to be called, who just took good care of finally getting power up after really a difficult trial in the first wave of snow and heavy lines. And also the road crews, who do a great job always and did a fabulous job again. And they're going to be challenged again. So keep them and the line workers in your prayers, because I know they're going to be very busy in the next 4 or 5 days. My loser is Judge Arthur Engeron up in the Trump civil fraud trial. The other day, in the last closing argument day, Stephanie, he quipped as a group of pool photographers were admitted into the room. Can you picture yourself in a courtroom witnessing this? And he said, lining them up like they're going to be shot or something. Can you imagine a judge saying that about photographers and reporters?
Not any judges I know.
Brian, what if a judge said that and you were lining up to do, lining up and entering the courtroom? You'd report it, wouldn't you?
Of course. I mean, but no, we don't. Our judges.
No, of course not.
We've never had anything.
Sounds like a Judge Byron Kinder line to me, Brian.
That's an odd joke from someone who himself has had serious threats. So he's the loser of the week.
And I've got a couple winners of the week. I'm going to go along with you on. Actually, had that on the list. The linemen and women from Boone Electric and all the electric crews who have been working in Macon. I think they've been working in very difficult conditions. In some cases, very dangerous conditions, and those areas, by the way, are going to get the bulk of the snow today. Want to thank another couple of winners of the week, Tony Jaco and Eric Cornelius, who are Cornelius, and I should say, at Callaway Bank, one of our great advertisers who helped me out so much, and I appreciate them very much. Tony and Eric are two of my winners of the week. And last but not least for winners, Nick Saban. Nick Saban has announced he is retiring, the Alabama Crimson Tide coach. 17 years at the Capstone in Tuscaloosa, 6 national championships, 9 SEC titles. And he came to Jefferson City, Missouri. Few people know that. Few people remember it, but he came, to Jefferson City, Missouri. He is Catholic, went to the chapel, and recruited a guy named Hale Henches. And Hale Henches was one of the best tight ends to ever play at the University of Alabama. So he would be one of my winners of the...
Has a Mizzou connection, too, doesn't he, Brian?
Well, yes. I mean, he has a Mizzou connection. And, of course, Nick Saban played with Gary Pinkel, and they both coached at Toledo at one time, he and Gary Pinkel as well. So I would nominate them for the winners of the week. Loser of the week, I have one. Actually, yes, I do.
Is this a first?
Not very often. Not very often, but yeah, I'm going to nominate somebody for loser of the week. And it was really hard to watch this person do this. But this was, I'm not going to say what restaurant. It was a restaurant here in Columbia, and a man was eating with either his mother or his mother-in-law. Read the paper the whole time. She asked for a cup of hot coffee. And he said he didn't want to do it. He gave her cold coffee, and he walked out of the restaurant. And I had to help the poor lady. She couldn't get out of her chair.
What?
She couldn't get out of her chair, and
this man was dining with her.
Yes.
Yes, that's
and
a loser.
I have a mother with who's had a stroke. It's really
that's a serious loser.
That's just really a shame.
Yeah,
really shame on anybody who would do such a thing.
Oh my goodness!
I could say a lot more, but I will. I'd have to go to confession tomorrow and confess, and we'd be fined for cursing. So I won't say anything more.
Okay.
That's how I feel.
Pretty fired up.
I get fired up when I see people act like that.
I now have to modify and add to my winner list. To add Brian to the winner list, not only for that gesture of gallantry and wonderful care and compassion, but also for not calling me a loser when I was joking about the dud. And
that's where I was worried it was going.
I was afraid.
No worries.
And now, to be clear, the dud applied to the Columbia area, and I should have been more precise.
Oh, now
Here
you
he goes.
clarify.
And I still don't think it was. I think we were very fortunate.
Oh boy, here we go.
I don't think we were.
Oh,
I don't
was-
think it was a dud, but I was pretty.
He was worked up, guys. Let's just be honest about it. He was pretty ticked off at the old Randy.
Especially
here. Yeah.
because the parking lot here was a sheet of ice, so.
No.
but
That was the morning after. It was the very first. It was on Monday or two. When did the snow start
The snow
falling?
started on Monday about 10 o'clock. It was supposed to start around noon.
Yeah.
So it was but it's all good, and we were very fortunate because the system where your farm is, that system that where a lot of the people lost the power was supposed to be where actually we could have got some of that too. So we were pretty fortunate. But I agree with you. The crews and everybody and overall did a great job. And I'm hoping after this cold system moves through next week that it gets a little bit warmer. But we need some dry time.
Well, we're going to have, I think, dry mostly, but very cold and
Brutal.
very windy. I mean, it's going to be brutal. For those of you that have little kids or that prize your own exposed skin surfaces, especially on the lips and maybe just a little bit in the nose, take a little Vaseline and just put it right inside your nose and your lips. Just a little barrier there because, I mean, it can just wreak havoc with those exposed sensitive areas.
It's terrible.
Be very, very
Yes.
careful and make sure that your face is covered. Try to breathe into a muffler. I mean, breathing in that cold air, it'll set off asthma. It'll set off, if you have a little lung problem to begin with. I'm not kidding. This is a bigger threat, this cold, than the snow, in my opinion.
And you should probably try to avoid, exposing your other sensitive areas in the cold.
Well, hands.
Hello,
That's always
Anna.
good advice.
Always good advice.
Hands have to be protected. In what the Weather Service is saying is that it's actually life threatening, and that would be especially the homeless people, if they're not wearing earmuffs or if they're not wearing gloves or hats or whatever. So yes, you're absolutely right about that. The Cardinal Caravan is still on as of right now for Jeff City and Columbia tonight, but I'm worried about them because they're going to be up in Hannibal, which is scheduled to be at noon today. They're scheduled to get some snow, but that'll be good for people. But just be careful if you're going to see the Cardinals. Hopefully they make it, and bundle up.
Coming up, we'll do the leftovers. There's a lot. And I'm going to have a request of John and Brian. We had an interesting text asking, is there a DEI officer in the state of Missouri? Maybe we can find out, if not next segment, on Monday. We'll put that on our plate of to-do list for next
mentioning again, there are some canceled flights out of COU for Columbia, so check that if you need to. And then also, I really do feel like this Rand Paul Never Nikki thing that he announced today. So he told us yesterday he was going to say something. Now he said, there are good things about Trump and about DeSantis and he even said about Ramaswamy. But you know what? I'm never Nikki, and he has this new website out. And so ahead of the Iowa we're days away from the Iowa caucus. And we've been getting some texts from you all that you are also in the Never Nikki camp, which I'm surprised, actually.
We need John and Stephanie and producer Hannah. We're going to have to carve out a segment to have a discussion here on the show and with our family of listeners about whether we're going to come down to this question. There are a lot of people. We're getting texts that says, if it's Nikki Haley, I will write in Trump. I will write in Ramaswamy or whoever, anyone else than Nikki. Is that not a vote for socialism? Whoever the Democrat nominee is that not a vote, throwing a vote away? I maintain, it's my story and I'm sticking to it. A vote for Nikki Haley on her very worst, absolute down in the valley day is better than any Democrat they can throw up on the ticket.
100%.
Yeah. And I don't know why people would walk away just because they're candidate. This is a problem that the GOP has at the electoral level, at the political legislative level. It's like we see it in the Freedom Caucus. Well, if I don't get my way, I'm taking my marbles home. I don't know whether that's so bright in the big picture.
Well, and whether whether they write somebody in or whether they just stay home.
Yeah,
I mean,
both
are a risk to our future.
Certainly. I don't know, John. Don't you see that as a potential threat to turning the ship of socialism around towards the ship of freedom and prosperity?
Well, I think it's kind of academic because unless something radically changes, I think it's going to be Donald Trump. But, you hear that argument. You hear that argument about people who vote libertarian. Are you throwing away your vote?
Yeah, I think you're right, John. Oh, something else for leftovers that really frustrates me this week, and I should have nominated them for Loser of the Week. St. Louis County paid $90,000 for a new logo. And, John, you remember when Columbia went through their big fiasco and they paid some enormous amount for this new city logo? This has been several years ago. And
I do.
And then it was like, what? It looks like, a kid drew this. And St. Louis is the same.
It was 4 dudes in a hot tub, wasn't it?
So, yes, and it was very bizarre, but St. Louis County's isn't much better. It's like a wavy circle. Like it's not worth $90,000.
And Nick Schroer says, why did they get generative AI to do it for free?
I mean, my kids are pretty good artists. I could have. I mean, if you want to pay me $90,000 to draw a circle, I'm
you think
all
about
in.
it though. Could generative AI? I haven't tried that, but what if you were to just ask AI to say, draw a logo for my company, and here's the name of it, and here's what we do. Here's our main.
And no offense
offerings.
to my graphic design friends, because I do think there's a lot that is way above my pay grade. But all of my businesses, most of my businesses, I think I've always done the logo. My law firm logo, I did myself.
You do your own, though.
Yeah, I do it my own. Or their services, and we talked about gig workers yesterday. You can get on Fiverr and some other places, and you can get some help with that. But yeah, certainly AI, that's one area with graphics that it's becoming much more accessible to lay people. Now, I've had a lot of really good work done by local graphic designers on some other, on the tougher projects. But yeah, I think that's one area where we're going to see a lot of AI.
I've mentioned it before. Hasbro laid off 1,200 workers at the end of the year, or are going to lay them off. They announced it. In their creative division. Hasbro, what do? They make toys.
Right.
One of the most creative ventures you can think of.
Yeah, that's tough because, I think we were buying the heck out of puzzles and toys and stuff during COVID, and we're hopefully we're getting outside a little bit more and spending more time together.
Puzzles? Do we put puzzles together as families anymore? Do we do that?
I was just thinking, I have all these puzzles from COVID, and I'm going to get one out this weekend.
There you go.
There was a great big puzzle company distributor down on I-44. John, you know what I'm talking about?
No.